Today I'm going to show you how to draw some of the characters from Wolfwalkers. We're going to draw Robin and Maeve and some wolves, and maybe later when we have time, we might draw the bird Merlin, or maybe even Robin's dad, Bill. But let's start with Robin. Now, Robin is constructed from very simple shapes, but you might see some things that are easy to think about, some easy shapes. So if, for example, you look at this construction, everything to do with Robin, and you can draw this on your piece of paper. I'm just drawing on a computer, but it's the same as a piece of paper. So you see everything to do with Robin is angles. Everything is like square or diamond or triangle. You see she has a long face like this. Everything you have to think about is pointy shapes. So she's very fast and very clever and very nimble and graceful. And everything about her is pointy and sharp and quick. So even her hair, you will see, is based on a square. And even her plait for her hair is based on some triangles like this. So everything is made from simple shapes, okay? And then once we have this construction, this is how we start. We begin to add some details. So here you can see it's the same drawing, but I've added some details. So I brought the eyes, I brought the ears. You can see that the shape I drew for the hair, now I start to make it look more like hair. Maybe these triangles are too sharp, so we make them a little curvy, but still they're based on triangles. So you can see her body is a little square. Her head with her hood up is a little diamond shape. And every part of her is made from triangles and squares. So it is quite simple. So if you want to take some time, you can construct her. Oh, but I have to tell you one thing very important. Before you start to draw the shapes, you draw a line to show the line of action. And the line of action is really important because it shows that she's proud, you know? And maybe if she was sad, we would have a line of action like this, where she would be really sad and really not happy. But when she's proud, we make a line of action like this. So the line of action and the construction are the most important part. Line of action, construction, details. And then only after we figure out where everything goes, we go to the final stage. We call it cleanup. And it's the final lines. And you can see the final lines. And then after the final lines, we have color. So this is how she looks in the movie. And you can try color yourself if you're at home with some paints. And that's really obvious, the part that I'm not going to show you today, colors. I'm just going to show the drawing part. And then you can focus on the colors later, okay? But I just show you the colors to show how she looks finally when all the drawing is finished. But if you look closely at the lines, we do a special kind of line for Robin. And this is because we want it to look like a block print. And that's when we draw a line. Whoops, excuse me. Not a very good one. But we draw a line and then we go back and we make some parts of it thicker, like this. And so it gives an effect of a block print. Okay, so now we talked about how to make a drawing of Robin. Let's try something fresh. Let's take a look at this pose from the movie. Here she's running. You can see she's still made of all the basic shapes. Take a bit of time to have a look and see what shapes you can see with Robin. Can you see her line of action? Bet you can. Her line of action is straight down the middle. She's coming right towards us. If she was from the side, I think her line of action would be like this. This would be the direction that she would be running. We would see that her back is bent. and that she was running. But we're going to draw her from the front. Okay, let's draw her from the front. So we have a very quick construction here, but let's build the construction again, just from the start so we can see what we're doing. We might zoom in a little bit. Okay, so we have our line of action. And now we want to start doing the shapes. So we draw the square shape. This is her hair. And then this is the kind of triangle shape that makes her face, because she has a kind of pointy chin. And now put her ears here. We figure out where her eyes are. Okay, she's really determined, so we give her a determined look in her eyebrows. Now we draw her nose. Her nose is really just a little, really easy to draw. She has kind of long lip at the top, and she has an open mouth. And now we have to think about her eyes. Now her eyes are interesting because Robin's eyes are kind of like diamonds, and they're also a little bit like a wolf's eyes. It's a little clue that she can transform. So when we think about her eyes, we start with square shape, and then we make it more curvy. So we start with a curve shape, a square shape. That's the way we construct her eyes. And then we put the circle inside. And then we make it more curvy. Now, what's next? We have to think, where's her hair? So we have a line of action, straight line of action. Let's draw her hair. This is where she parts her hair. Okay, now her hair is behind her, but let's pretend that her hair is flying like this. So here's the line of action for her hair. We make one triangle, two triangle, so three triangles, that's her hair. And everyone can draw triangles, so everyone can draw Robin's hair. Everything is made of simple shapes. So now we want to draw her body. Her body is simple. It's just a little square shape. She has a little X. That's where it keeps her clothes on. And the bottom part of her coat is like two triangles. One here, and one here. And an easy way to think about her legs is, here's one square, like a rectangle shape. Here's one triangle shape. Here's one rectangle shape. And now her foot is a triangle shape. So very simple shapes, but all together they make Robin. And in the movie, we decided to make all the people from England triangle shapes and square shapes, and all the people from Ireland, the Wolfwalkers, circular shapes, so that we had two different shapes to show the two different people from two different cultures. Later on, we'll draw Maeve, and you'll see that she's all based on circles. But for now, we're drawing Robin, who's all based on squares and triangles. Can you see the triangle in her hand? There it is. Can you see the square shape of her hand? Here it is. And then we go inside and make more little shapes. That's the fingers. She has a triangle for a cuff. What's a good trick is to make the outside curve of the arm a curve and the inside a triangle, so we can see which way her arm is bending. And then she has a nice cape. Okay, it's flowing backwards, but it's still simple shape, it's square. Okay, so now we've added all the details. Maybe we can add some things, little things for fun. Like here's the flower that her dad gave her. We make a little circle, and then we can make the petals inside. And here's a leaf that she got in her hair from the tree. That's really just a triangle. Okay, so it looks to me, if we zoom out, that we've made all the details of Robin. And we made it all with simple shapes. So I think now it's time to put another piece of paper on top, or to make it more faint. Usually we do it with paper. We put another page on top, and then we can kind of see through the paper. There's enough transparency that we can make a final drawing. So now I'm going to make the final cleanup drawing. And for this, I'm going to use black. And this is where we go a little bit slowly and we're a little bit more careful. So let's make her eyebrows. Okay, she's concentrating. So she has a little frown. And remember earlier we made the eyes from square shapes, but now it's time to make them curved. So we just make curves and then circles. And we maybe make it a little bit thicker to show her eyelashes. And then here we make some curves, curve shapes, and then some circles. Okay, cool. Now we have her eyes. That looks good. Let's make a nice curve for her nose. Nice. And now the part under her nose, we make a little bit darker. She's smiling. Make the smile. Now we make her mouth is open. And if you want to, you can make inside the mouth dark. Okay. Now, we know her face is a triangle, but we don't want it to look too triangular. We want to make it a little bit curvy. So we used a triangle to figure out where the face was and what shape it was. Now it's our chance to make it a little bit chubbier. Remember that she has cheeks after all. She's still a girl, not a robot. So we want to make her. Now we're going to give her a nice curve. And we're going to make some more hairs to show her hair. That's nice. We can make the leaves in her hair. We want those to go on top, so we need to draw them first and then put the other lines underneath. So now we're letting ourselves be a little bit more curvy. We've already used the squares and triangles to make the shapes, but if it's something soft like hair, we have to have a little bit of a curve in there to make it feel a little bit more fluid, a little bit more movement. So we can now loosen up a bit and make the triangles a little bit more curvy. That's okay. We have to remember that her hair is, after all, hair and not metal or something hard. So, okay, now we have to come and draw the other parts of her. Thankfully, we did a good construction. So we can draw this line of her arm. I didn't really follow my construction. I'm going to try again. That's better. That's better. And Maeve ripped her sleeve when she bit her earlier. So there's a little bit of a tear in this sleeve. Now, she has a hand, not a triangle. So let's have a think. We drew a triangle, but now we need to make it a hand. So let's make a little thumb and then a knuckle. This is her wrist. So now it looks not so much like a triangle and more like a hand that's closed in a fist. And this hand is not just a square after all, it's really a hand. So we have to think about the details that make it a hand. Here's her fingers. 1, 2. Now that looks a little bit more like a hand and less like it's just a square. Okay, her clothes are soft, but not as soft as her skin, so we can be a little bit more angular with her clothes. We can keep this nice square, this nice triangle shape here, and her cuff has probably got a lot of starch in it. But let's keep this nice curve. It's nice to have a curve on the outside of the elbow. And here's her cape. Nice, huh? Nice to draw curves. Maybe you're using a pencil. Pencils are nice for drawing curves. You can see a little bit of the X of her tunic there. That's the name for her coat, a tunic. It's an old name for a coat. And these are the sides of her coat. So they kind of flap up and down as she runs. But again, we keep them straight on one side. If you look at most cartoon characters, they have simple shapes underneath that you can use to draw them. And when you figure out the simple shapes, then you need to think about what each part is made from. So now we're drawing boots. So they're quite stiff. They're made from leather. And this is the buckle of her boot, which is made from metal. So we won't make it too soft. We'll keep it pretty hard. We won't put too many curves here. But her trousers, they're quite soft. So we can put a curve there. This is the knee. And this is her foot and her shoe. She's running, so we have foreshortening. That means that when you look at a leg or an arm or something in the mirror and you're running towards yourself, if you point towards yourself in a mirror, you'll see that your hand looks bigger the closer it is to the mirror and smaller the further away it is. And when we draw that, we call it foreshortening. I'm sure there's words in every language for that. But it's a trick to make the character look like they're coming towards you. Now, we've done all the lines, but what we want to do is something special. For this movie, we had a special final line style, and that meant that we wanted it to look a little bit like woodblock print, as if somebody cut the lines out of a piece of wood. So that means that we go back and we look for opportunities to imagine we're drawing it with a piece of wood and a knife. So maybe this line would be thicker, like this. Maybe here we have a thick line. Maybe it's more thick here underneath. Just trying to give a little bit more weight to the lines. Okay, underneath here we might make it thicker, show a little bit of shadow like this. Maybe here we can make a little dent. Okay, here with the buckle, it's a good opportunity to make a thick line. Here's a good opportunity to make a thick line. On the bottom of the foot, it's a good opportunity. Now, this is a very simple style. It's almost like Picasso, or it's almost like modern art where we flatten everything out. It's not like a realistic drawing, but that's the style we chose for this movie because we wanted it to look like the style of artwork from this time period in England. And that's when they made pictures by cutting the lines out of a piece of wood and then putting some ink on the wood and then pressing the wood against a piece of paper. So that gave an effect with lots of lines that were sort of thicker and thinner, but really crude, simple shapes that you can cut from a piece of wood quite quickly and quite easily with a knife or a chisel. And that gives the effect of old-fashioned prints. So that's the effect that we want to give. You can take your time and just choose if it's the bottom part, it's usually where we give a thickness, or if there's a little bit of a shadow, it's a good place to give a thickness, or otherwise just here and there, look for an opportunity to make that woodblock print shape. And the nice thing about this style is it doesn't have to be too perfect because we want it to look a little bit handmade, not like it was drawn by a computer. We like the idea that it looks like it was drawn by somebody with simple tools, maybe a little wobbly. That's part of the style, which is nice. And we had a special style for the people from England who live in the town, and a different style for the people who live in the forest. And we're going to talk about that next. So you can take your time, and if you drew the construction with a pencil, a good trick is to use a pen or a marker or something with a black line to make the final, like a comic book artist would make the final line with ink, but maybe the first lines with a pencil. And the thing is, we have to draw these characters so often that we try and keep them quite simple. It's easier to draw a character over and over again if they're made from really simple shapes. So that's what we do. And okay, we have a pretty good drawing of Robin. That's one frame. Thankfully, we don't have to animate her. Otherwise, we'd have to go and draw her again and again in each pose that we need 12 times per second, which is a lot of work. So thankfully, we don't have to do that. This is Robin's friend, Maeve. And can you spot that there's some big differences with Maeve? She's much more made from circles and much less made from squares and triangles. So even though there's some triangles in there, mostly she's made from big, curvy, simple shapes. And I'm just going to go over these drawings quickly for a few minutes, and you can take your time later and use the page that we gave you to figure out how she's drawn, and then make up some new poses of your own. Because once you understand the simple shapes, then you can easily make new drawings of your own following those same rules. So let's take a look at these poses of Maeve. She has a lot of personality. And that's why her line of action is so important, because the line of action shows so much personality just in one line. So if you look at this one, I think she's sniffing what's out there. So if we had to imagine her line of action, I think it would be something like this. Yeah, that's her line of action, I think. Now, let's think, where would we put her body if that was the line of action? I think this is her body. It's like a little jelly bean. She's so different to Robin. She's made from circular shapes. There's her head. And always the eyes are halfway through the head. And that's the angle of her head. Okay, that's looking good. Now we can put her legs. Again, she doesn't have thin legs like Robin. She has squashy legs. Everything about Maeve is chunky and curvy. She's kind of like a baby. Everything is a little bit more curvy. And she's not so flat like Robin. She has more curves in her. So we can kind of see the shape of her arms by drawing curved lines. You see, these are the bracelets she wears, and they give a little curve to her arms. And we can see, oh, she has a little bite out of this ear. So we draw a circle and then we draw another circle. I think at some point a wolf might have bit her ear. She was probably playing with a wolf too roughly. And we want to think about, where does this ear go? So let's have a think. Okay, this is the ear. It's attached to the head over here. Imagine you can see through the head. And if we draw the whole earring, later on when we make the final lines, make the final decisions, we will leave out certain lines so that it looks more three-dimensional. If we want to draw our nose, it's quite simple. We draw a circle, and then we take two little bites out of it like that. And her eyes, of course, are circles. And the outside part of her eyes are like, kind of like this shape. And she doesn't really have eyebrows. She just has all these kind of furry lines around the outside. And what's nice about Maeve is we never draw her with hard lines. We always draw her with like rough pencil lines. And she has this funny marking where she wipes her face all the time. I think it's from wiping her nose, but it's also the mark that shows that she's a Wolfwalker. because even when she's a wolf, she has the same mark on her face. Oh yeah, so let's draw her belt on her dress. Here's her belt. It follows the shape of her belly. And then these are the two little parts of the belt where she ties it. And then she has a dress, and the dress has to hang from her waist down. And there's more bites here. It looks like she's been fighting with wolves a lot. And the nice thing about Maeve is everything is inside this big teardrop shape. So she has a big teardrop shape like this. That's her hair. So she's got so much hair, it makes her look like a big, simple teardrop shape. And if you color her in all black, all you'd see was this big teardrop shape. But inside, we make sure everything is clear. Okay, so that's the construction. Maybe before we go and do the final lines, I'll show you the construction of Maeve in some other poses. Let's pick this pose. This looks like fun. Okay, whoa. So what's her line of action? She's coming right towards us, so the line is straight. And her face is coming towards us. Oh, she's really angry. And what's fun about Maeve is that she can get sharp teeth when she's angry, because we can play tricks like that with cartoons. They don't have to be perfect. We can make little tricks to make her look more angry. Here are her earrings. And there's her body. There's her dress. So you can see all the parts, and you can learn how to draw her. She's got angry eyes. She has little dots under her eyes too. There's like little tattoos. Shows that she's from a different tribe than Robin. And you can see that there's one big shape. So, oh yeah, it's fun to draw her mouth. Sharp teeth. But this way, by drawing over the sheet that we give you, you can figure out all the basic shapes that she's made from. And that's an easy way to learn how to draw her, because if you start from the basic shapes, you can draw her doing anything, because it makes it simpler by thinking in terms of simple shapes. That's all her hair. What's fun with Maeve is her hair can have all angry lines everywhere. And that can be really fun, and even her toes can be a bit like claws. Okay. So that's just two. But if we look at this sheet, what's happening? Go away. If we look at the sheet, we can see her in lots of different poses. And once we know how to draw her in different poses, it means we can draw her in a new pose if we want to, you know? Now we've learned how to draw her, we know all the simple shapes. So you can go through this and learn all her simple shapes. And this is a good drawing, just as an example, where you can see that the animator, you can see all the shapes that they used to make the drawing. So if you look at this drawing, you can see all the shapes they made to draw Robin and Maeve together. You can see that Robin has much more triangles and squares, more angles, and Maeve is more curvy and round. And here's another example. You can see Robin is talking to Maeve, and you can see the contrast between the two of them. Let's just have a little look at the different shapes between the two of them. What's the big main shape? If you want to look at this drawing and figure out how it's done, what's the big main shape? Okay, so Robin, I think, is like a big triangle. And what is Maeve? She's like a big teardrop shape. But we can also see there's a nice line of action. Look at the line of action. Robin is leaning this way, Maeve is leaning towards her. Shows that Maeve is really proud, even if Robin is talking to her like that. And then you can see all the simple shapes you can figure out how to draw the characters like that. So maybe it's fun now to try and draw the characters doing something different, doing something that we don't have any examples for yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this drawing, I'm going to make it small up here so I can look at it. But maybe I want to draw Robin doing something that we didn't draw her doing before. Maybe I'm going to draw Robin running, okay? So maybe I'm going to draw her line of action. Then I'm going to draw her head. Then I'm going to draw her body. She has a short body, we remember that. Maybe her coat is flying behind because she's running. Maybe she has one leg like this. It's fun to make up the poses. Maybe she has one more leg like this. And you can really, once you figure out the simple shapes, you can really draw her doing anything you want. Maybe now I can put her here, here. Now I can put her here. Remember, all these simple shapes, they all come together to make Robin. Now I draw her running. She's running really fast. Maybe her cape is flying behind her. Maybe she's smiling. Oh yeah, Robin is smiling and running. That's fun. And maybe I can put Maeve beside her. Maybe Maeve is also running. So we'll just draw a big, simple shape like this. We draw Maeve. Maybe she's smiling. They're having fun running together. You can see Maeve is looking at Robin. And everything is made from simple shapes. What's the line of action for Maeve? Maybe we can have some fun and Maeve is maybe running like with 4 legs. Maybe we can have Maeve's arms like she's running on 4 legs like a wolf, more like a wolf than like a girl. Because Maeve is always a little bit more wild and crazy than Robin, so she's probably half jumping, half running. But see how I'm thinking about everything with really simple construction and finding everything. And this is how really every animator who works in our studio works. We think about simple shapes first, and then we go and do the details afterwards. So once we have these simple shapes, everything else is pretty easy. You can just spend your time making the details, taking your time finding all the shapes that you need. But it really starts with the line of action and then finding the simple shapes that make your character. And then only when you have all the shapes figured out do you take the time to make the final lines, the final drawings. I think I made her leg a bit too long. You can also adjust your drawing at this stage, which is good. It's a good. This is the time where you can make mistakes, make some changes, decide that you don't like the way it is, so you want to change it to something else. This is the time for trying stuff out. And this is the time where we can make really detailed drawings with lots of simple shapes. We can decide how we want to draw the characters. Okay, so there's Robin and Maeve. If we like this drawing and we think we've made all the construction right, and let's say we do, okay, there's probably lots of things we could change, lots of things we could try out, but let's say we do. Now is a good time to make the final line. And this is what's fun, because Robin and Maeve have very different final lines. So it's like putting another page on top. Just put another page on top that you can see through, and then you can start making decisions about the final lines. So what's fun about Maeve is even when we make the final line, we leave it pretty rough. We don't let it get too clean. Like we saw how we cleaned up Robin as if she had a thick pen line. But with Maeve, what we want to do is keep it like a pencil. We want it to be like a pencil line. So it's a good idea to find a pencil line. Here's my pencil. So it's easier if you have a real pencil, but this looks like a pencil line. And what's nice about Maeve is she's all kind of scratchy. Everything about her is scratchy. And that kind of gives a certain feeling, you know, makes her feel kind of rough and wild. And what's really nice is when you watch the movie, you can still see all the pencil lines that we used to draw her. She still has a scratchy final line. You can, if you look closely when you're watching the animation on the screen, you'll see all the construction lines. You'll see the simple shapes popping out, especially on Maeve, because we left all those in. Because we like to see the scratchy lines. We like to see the pencil lines inside the characters. Because we like that they're drawings. We don't want to pretend they're not drawings. We like that they're drawings. We want to make something that looks like a really nice drawing, that somebody had a lot of fun drawing it. So that's why we try to keep everything nice and loose, sketchy, fresh. A nice fresh feeling to it. So happy about this. Harder pencil. That's better. Like I sharpened the pencil, you know, if you want to make a sharper line, you just get a harder pencil. You make a sharper tip on your pencil. So I guess you all have pencil sharpeners. So you can make first drawings with really soft pencil with a round tip on top. So when you're sketching, you want your pencil to look like this on top. And then when you're making the final lines, you use your sharpener and you make your pencil look like this on top. And then you can make precision, but you can still keep all the nice soft lines from when the pencil was nice and fat and roundy. Oh. So we're remembering all the things we learned as we studied the model sheet now. Oh yeah, Maeve's arms are round. She has kind of round bracelets, and her hands are made from simple round shapes. So she's like got big, fat, squashy hands. Everything about Maeve is really round and cute and chubby like a baby. Everything is kind of chubby and round. Even her teeth, even if they're sharp, they're kind of round. Even her earrings are made of circles. Here's her arms. She's stretching. She's jumping and stretching. She's probably going to land on her arms next. That's probably the next thing she's going to do. So land down on her arms. Here's her feet. And her feet are really simple shapes. They're just like this. But what we do when we make the final lines is we kind of color them in dirty, because that kind of shows that she's been running in the mud and she doesn't wear shoes, so she's got kind of dirty feet. And here is her belt. Now we can have a lot of fun with her hair, because the thing is, Maeve's hair has a lot of personality, just like Maeve. And we have to remember that there's always some leaves in her hair, some brambles and branches, and usually, sometimes she has a flower in her hair, but you can put lots of decoration in her hair. Oh, we mustn't forget her tattoos. The funny thing is, these little markings that we see on Maeve when she's a girl, we really notice them when she's a wolf. It's what helps us know that it's Maeve and not just any other wolf. Those are the markings. Some leaves. So anyway, what's nice about Maeve is we can be really scratchy, and that's still the right style. The style of Maeve is scratchy lines everywhere. Rah. It really feels like she has a lot of energy. Look, if we take away the drawing underneath, that's fine. That's what we want the final line to look like on Maeve. We want it to be scritchy and scratchy. Makes her feel full of life. And we color it like this. We leave it like this when we color it. Oh, maybe she needs a thumb. Maybe there's some details that I missed, but I can check them now when I turn off the construction. Or for you, it's like when you take away the page underneath and just check what your final page is. This is a mistake. We shouldn't see through her arm. Now that looks better. We don't want her arm to be invisible after all. Okay, so now we have a nice scratchy drawing of Maeve, but let's, for contrast, make Robin in the town style. Okay, that's going to be different. So maybe if I was using paper, this is when I might use a pen. This is when I might decide, okay, I'm going to draw with a pen now to have a different look, because I want Robin to have a really thick black clear line, like we said, like a woodblock print. So I've used my construction layer to find the simple shapes, but now I'm going to use my pen to find the final line. Oops. Just be brave, because mistakes are charming. It's nice to see some mistakes, I think. I don't think that making every drawing absolutely perfect is the ideal. I think the best thing is to have some charming mistakes. It means we're not computers or robots, we're people, and we're making something that's a craft. So it's okay to have some mistakes in there. That's what I think anyway. So I didn't really do very detailed construction, so I have to, if I had more time, I think I'd make a more detailed construction. I wouldn't have to make up so much, but I draw these characters a lot, so maybe you might want to spend a little bit more time making a more detailed construction until you know the characters really well. Then you can skip some stages because you know the characters so well, you know how to build them. But while you're first learning the style, you probably spend a bit longer on the construction so that the final line stage goes easier. Because what you really want to be thinking about when you draw the lines is just the lines. You don't want to be trying to think about, oh, what's the shape and what's going on here. You should have made all those decisions, and you can just think about, is this a soft material or a hard material? Is this a cheek or is this a foot? And then if you have good construction, then that's all you have to think about, is whether or not the lines are the right kind of lines for this part of the body, this part of the character. But that's what good construction lets you do. If you have a good construction, everything else can be easier. I think I made the leg way too long, but I'm just going to shorten it now. Again, I should have spent a bit longer making the construction, but I just wanted to go fast to show you how it's done. And okay. Now this is a really rushed job. I did this really fast, but that's okay. I think it looks fun and fast. But what can I do now? I've got all these wobbly lines. What can I do? Okay, I wanted to have energy, but a different kind of energy to make. So this is when I can go through and check for opportunities to make it feel more like a woodblock print. So here's, I think I made a mistake with the body there too. The body looks a bit wrong, so I'll just connect it up a bit better here. Now is my chance to use thick and thin lines to make the drawing have a different feeling. It still has energy because it has a good line of action and has a nice feeling that she's really running and enjoying herself, but we're using different lines. And I got the idea to do this from a Japanese film from Takahata called The Tale of Princess Kaguya. And if you want to watch that, that is a lovely example of a movie that uses different lines to tell different parts of the story. The lines are scratchy sometimes, the lines are soft sometimes, and he really lets the drawings show. And I really like that. And so I really wanted to make something that felt a little bit like my style, a little bit like the style of Cartoon Saloon, but also a little bit like the style of Princess Kaguya. So you can see the trick I'm doing. I'm using different thicknesses of line to make Robin have a feeling of much more like a block print style. And I mean, we had some artists in the studio who were just brilliant at this. This wasn't really my specialty. I mainly focused on the rough drawings, and some of the artists in the studio were so good. And in an animation studio, you do have artists who focus just on the line. They're called cleanup artists. And it's a really hard job because it's like all they do is take all the animators' rough drawings and they make the final drawings that you see on screen. And so they're the ones that have to decide, okay, what's the feeling I want from this final drawing? How do I want it to look? Scratchy, tight, hard, soft? Is the character happy? Is the character sad? The animator gives really good construction, really good line of action, really good movement, but the final line animator has to really make the drawing that you see on screen. And the final line animator or cleanup artist, those are the names that they have, has a big responsibility because they have to make the drawing that you will finally see on screen. And they're the ones that have to think about what does the director need from this scene? What does the character need to feel like in this scene? What did the animator try to do with the movement in this scene? How can I make the character look solid? Make sure they look the same from one scene to the next. It's a big responsibility. You can see all the mistakes I made because I didn't spend enough time on the construction. But anyway, this gives you an idea. I'm sure you'll make much better drawings. You'll take your time and be much tidier. Well, it gives a quick idea of the two different line styles that we use in the movie, the hard lines and the scratchy lines. Okay, let's talk about different characters. We have a little bit of time left, and I'd like to talk about some wolves. So, can you see the different characters and the different shapes? We already showed some construction here. So as you can see, if you want to draw a wolf, it's just the same as drawing a human. There's some basic shapes. So when Ross and I were designing the characters with Federico, who is our character designer, we said, what is the basic shape of a wolf? When you look at a wolf, what is the simplest shape that says wolf? And how can we think about it in simple shapes? And just like Robin's hood, we came up with this idea. It's basically a diamond with two triangles and a rectangle. And if you put the eyes here, and the eyes are just like Robin's eyes, they're just diamond shapes. And you put the nose here, you already have a wolf. So this is the basic shape of all the wolves in Wolfwalkers. That's their face. And so from that basic shape, we can make Robin. This is Robin Wolf. So underneath there is the same diamond shape, but we make her nose a little bit shorter because she's young. And we remember that when Robin is a human girl, she has a nose like this. So we keep it when she's a wolf. And her eyes look the same as when she's a human girl. And the other thing that's nice is when they're wolves, we can draw their fur. So we can use our pencil to do lots of scratchy lines. And look, this is Maeve, which is much more curvy. So she's more like a semicircle with a little soft shape. And she still adds the two triangles for her ears. And her eyes are round. So everything about Maeve is a little bit more curvy and round, but still the same basic shape. So you can see the shapes that we use to draw the human girls are the same shapes that we use to draw them when they are wolves. And this is just an average wolf here. So if you take the time and do your construction work, you can draw a wolf. And it's the same for their bodies. So let's talk about what we do here. This is the skeleton of the wolf underneath. And if you think about it, when you stand on your hands and feet on the ground on four legs, you're basically the same as a wolf. You just have to think about it that this is the little trick that you have to remember. This is the wolf's knee, and this is the wolf's heel of his foot. And this is his foot, it's really long, and these are his toes on the ground. So once you realize that it's basically the same as a human walking on their tippy toes and on their hands, then it's easy to think about. So this is their elbow, and this is their arm, and this is their hand. And so they're just like you. If you got down on your hands and knees, you would be just like a wolf. So that's how you think about their skeleton. They're the very same as you. Inside there is their skull, that's their head. And they have a long nose because their nose is more important than anything else for a wolf. They can hear and smell better than we can see. And here you can see that the wolf again is just made from simple shapes. You can see the simple shapes, and we'll give you this sheet as well so that you can copy it. And this is a handy thing to think about. Where they're hard, where's the hard part of a wolf? It's where their bones are, where their knees are, where their heels are, where their elbow is, where their head is, where their teeth is. And where's the flexible, where's the soft part? Everywhere that's just fur. All these parts are just fur. So when you're drawing the wolf and making the construction, you can see really easily, this is just like when you're drawing a human character. Oops, what layer am I on? Just like when you're drawing a human character, you start with the line of action. So the first thing you think, okay, this wolf is jumping. Here's his line of action. Okay, here's his body, here's his hips, here's his head, here's his tail. That's something we don't have, but otherwise it's everything we have. Here's his hand and his elbow. Here's his hand and his arm. He has a big long nose. Rah. And he's just made out of simple shapes. There's his knee, there's his foot, and there's his toes. There's his knee, there's his knee. Because I used to always get confused when I was a kid trying to draw them. Because I didn't realize that this was their knee and this was their heel, and they have big long feet with toes on the bottom. And once you realize that, they're basically the same as a person. You can figure out anything, how to draw them. Okay, so I'm running out of time, but I just want to show you a couple more things. Here's a sheet that we'll give you as well. And if you take your time and put another piece of paper on top, you can figure out all the basic shapes that is used to make a wolf. And then if you want to spend some time making all the fur and everything, this is the trick that we use to draw the fur. So first we draw the wolf, and then we break it up into little simple shapes. So there's little triangles everywhere. And then we color in the triangles with lines that all go in the same direction. And that's how we make the fur. So you can see these are some rules how to make the fur. And it's just a way to break everything down into simple shapes. Everything in animation, when we draw it by hand, is made out of simple shapes. And probably the same if you use a computer. This is a handy sheet that we're going to give you as well because it lets you see the wolf from every angle and with different expressions. But can you see its foreshortening that we talked about earlier? He still has a long nose, but now his nose is pointed towards us. So that's foreshortening. And it shows how you can make different expressions on the wolf. He opens his mouth up really wide. So I hope you can see this is the front, this is 3/4, and this is the side. And he's made from the simple shapes. You just have to think about the simple shapes turning around, and you can draw them from any angle. And this is another thing I wanted to talk about a little bit if we have some time, a little bit of time. You can, once you figure out the simple shapes of a character, then you can turn their head in different directions and draw different expressions and try different things out. Because you can see that the artist who drew this, he kept the simple shape first of the head. Let me draw on it so you can see. So you can see he started with this construction. You can see that. And then he made the jawline, he made the face. This is Robin's dad, Bill. Okay, so he or she made these drawings first. Then they decided, okay, he's going to be happy. So he makes like a half moon shape. He draws his nose, draws all the construction piece by piece until he has his drawing. And like everything, it might look complicated when you first look at it, but when you break it down into simple shapes, you can draw anything. He's got big sideburns. The hairs are growing off his face, so they go down like that. He has a crossbow on his chin because he's a hunter. So we gave him a crossbow on his chin. He uses a crossbow to fight. But because you can see those simple shapes, if you take a look at these sheets later and take a look for the simple shapes, can we try and see where the simple shapes are? Let's just take a tricky one. Okay, here's a tricky one because he's looking a little bit downwards. So here's the shape of his head. Okay, we have that. He's looking downwards. There's his eye. Okay. There's his nose. It's not so hard once we think about it. So his jawline is facing down. And if we draw the shape of it, we can figure out where everything goes. And once you practice this a few times, then you'll be able to draw the characters from any direction. And I think this works with nearly any cartoon character. Once you find the simple shapes, you can draw them from any direction. And it's also the same of Merlin, the bird. And I wanted to show you these sheets because I thought they were a really good example of line of action. So if you look at this, and we talked about line of action earlier, and a line of action is the direction that the bird is going. So here we can see the line of action is really straight. And here we can see the line of action is like this because he's about to land, you know? Here we can see the line of action is like this. So first you have to think of the line of action and then you think of the simple shapes. So you can see Merlin has a line of action like this here, but he's also just a simple shape like that. And that's it. And from that, you can make all the poses that you want. And you can just think about it in terms of simple shapes. So, okay, I think that's all the time for now. That's almost 1 hour of talking. So I hope that this was interesting for you. Oops, just want to leave you with this example, just to go back to what we talked about at the start. So think about line of action, construction, simple shapes, add your details, make the final line, and then that's your final picture. Okay, so take lots of time to work with the sheets that we give you. You can figure out the characters yourself and then try and draw the characters in all the poses you can think of. Maybe draw yourself in the mirror doing different things. Try some foreshortening, try some drawing some wolves, try drawing all the characters that you like and think about simple shapes, line of action, and it'll be easy. It'll be no problem. You'll be an animator in no time.